Hey everybody, I've just been asked by a few people to just go over how I set up my cars, how I line my cars, what sort of things I look for when I do the setup. And I thought now might be a good time, seeing as the last time I drove the car, which was at Taupo, it was handling pretty good, and I've sort of found a sweet spot for what I think works, and I can pretty much go over and explain to everybody how I set up my cars up without a wheel alignment machine. Basically just me and a tape measure is all I really need to do my setups. So alignment's a pretty important thing. With getting certain areas of the car right is really important. You can get away in some areas of being a bit slack and not getting it perfect, but there's a couple of measurements that I think are the most important measurements, and that's what I base all of my alignments off, which I'll go over in a second. So if we walk over to the car now, you can see it's up on the axle stands at the moment, and I'm just going to come over here and grab a tape measure so I can show you the first measurement. So whatever tape measure you need, just get it, anything. This is pretty much the most important piece of the alignment. You'll notice that in here I've got some writing, which I just use to sort of, in case I forget the measurement exactly. So measurement this is the most important measurement, by the way, between this bolt here and the bottom of the hub. And this is how I measure my caster. I don't use wheel alignment machines, I don't use gauges. I just ensure that the measurement between here and here on both sides of the car is the same, just by getting a tape measure, putting it against there and just measuring right to there. That is how I do my caster. Obviously you need to have some sort of idea of how much caster you've got in the first place, so I'd recommend probably getting a wheel alignment or getting some sort of caster alignment gauge and just getting the car to around about 7 degrees caster. Once it's at 7 degrees caster, then I'd personally go back and get the tape measure and then measure each side of the car on that measurement I just showed you, and just make sure it's even. Because the problem is that with a lot of alignment machines is that they tend to bring one wheel on each side of the car more forward than the other side of the car. So even though the wheel alignment machine may be saying that the alignments, the cast is 7 degrees, well actually the measurement between here and here may be like 20 mil different on the other side. That creates other problems, and that's what you don't want. So basically you need to get the car to a point where you think you've got your caster around about 7 degrees or wherever it feels good to you, and then just make an average on either side of the car. So if one side of the car is between those two measurements, if one side of the car is 470 mil between here and there, and the other side is 460 mil, well then make it about 465 on each side. Start right there. That's the most important measurement. You don't need, once you understand that measurement, once you've got sort of a baseline, then you'll never need a caster machine again, or alignment machine. You can just do it by tape measure, easy as. If you feel that you need more caster, bring it forward a bit. If you feel that you need less caster, bring it back a bit. You can do that at the track, you can do it anywhere. So that's number one. Number two is toe. So on this car at the moment it's running 35 mil toe out. So 35 mil toe out on the front of the car may seem like a lot. It is quite a lot, but in this case it works for me. So having more toe out on the front of the car allows for really snappy transitions. It allows for the car just to really flick through a switch, and that is pretty important for if you want to drive quite aggressively. You need to have the car switching really quickly. So in this case I've got 35 mil toe out. 35 mil toe out may not be good for everybody. It just works for me. So and it also depends on the track. Some tracks like Pukekohe, which is 200 kilometers an hour, I probably wouldn't run 35 mil toe out. I'd probably knock it back to 20 mil, maybe 15 mil. One useful tool I have at my disposal are these slip plates. They basically allow me to check what the actual toe reading is. So at the moment the rear of the car is on, it's 15 mil toe in total, which is not enough, particularly for the bigger tracks like Taupo. It probably needs about 30 mil toe in. for that particular track. For some other tracks, for slower tracks, I would not advise running a lot of toe in, but that's just a preference thing. So if we go back to the start, camber, I would suggest around about 5 to 6 degrees on my current setup. This works for me. I'd recommend bringing out your lower control arm as far as possible from the inside out. Mine's extended about 70 mil from over the top of what factory was, and do that evenly on both sides. I'd then recommend, once that's done, I would recommend getting the measurement between here and here to be exactly the same on each side, and aiming for a number that you know works. For example, for me, the car is now at 465 millimeters, even though that says 455. 455 millimeters was what I was using at Hampton Downs the other week, and it was too much caster, so I've dropped it back 10 mil. You'll be surprised how much 10 mil makes in terms of difference. It's a huge amount, so it's really important to get that right. Rear of the car, aim for, say 10 mil toe in for a nice conservative amount, and you can go up to anywhere up to sort of 30 or 40 mil if you feel that you really need it. Camber, I run this thing at 0 degrees camber in the rear. I like to have a little bit of wear on when the car squats. I like the wheels just to slightly, the outer edge to kind of come out off the ground. That just enables the car not to bog, because these tyres are super sticky, the Goodride Sport RS, and this car is not hugely powerful. It's 490 kilowatt, 500 kilowatt with this turbo on it. However, I've got this turbo header going on it, so that's going to change pretty soon. That's the EFR 9180. So that's a real short video. I hope it's helpful to some people. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments. And yeah, good luck.